Goose, and I reject law. In my last video, I did a speedrun of Super Mario Odyssey without having played the game first, which was ambitious? We'll go with ambitious, but I did have fun doing that and putting it together, kind of, I guess. But I realized I needed the run to be shorter. 1 hour of speedrun meant 5 hours of playing the game, and even longer to edit and get the video together. So I brought up speedrun.com, sorted by active games, and just sort of clicked around the games that looked interesting to see what the world record times were. I was mostly aiming for games between 10 and 20 minutes, but a few games slipped in that were shorter or longer. As you already know from the title of this video, I did settle on a next game to do, and that was Untitled Goose Game. This game has a bafflingly short completion of 2 minutes and 4 seconds. The shorter time of the run should translate to way shorter recording times, and also shorter editing times. I will be doing the any % route in this video as well. This basically just means get to the end of the game, nothing else matters. So, just like last time, the rules are, I can do as much prep as I want, but I cannot open, play, or mess around with the game before I start the run. 2, I cannot look anything up once I have started. I have to rely on my notes and my memory. And 3, I have to try to complete all the skips used in the any % route of this game. With those out of the way, I set to work preparing for the run by watching runs and checking out the guides on the game. With guides watched and notes taken, I hopped into the game. Where Mario Odyssey has a clear delimiter of progress in the form of the moons you have to collect throughout the run, Untitled Goose Game has a clear delimiter of its own, and that's in the skips you perform, of which there are 8. First thing I did was honk, which starts the official speedrun time. The game defaulted to keyboard and mouse controls, which was fine initially, but it quickly became apparent that a gamepad was going to be a much better way to pull off this speedrun. The first trick you have to do in the run is gate skip. By dropping this boot, running up on top of it, and crouching again, you can get your head through the gate, and then from there, if you turn the goose, the game's collision will actually push you through the gate without you having to take the time to open it. Obviously, opening the gate normally would be faster, but we do need to do the speedrun strats in this, and that's the first one. It did take me some tries on my first attempt to get through, but I did quickly get the hang of it. This sort of clipping is used at a couple other points in the run. It's at this point I should also mention the other departure from Super Mario Odyssey, soft blocks. There are a lot of tricks that involve dropping and picking up objects in a variety of crouched and uncrouched positions to clip through walls and other obstacles in this run. What that means, though, is if you mess it up and drop or otherwise lose the thing you need to clip with, you're just out of luck. You have to restart from the very beginning. Except, Untitled Goose Game has a checkpointing system that saves your progress, but because of all the glitches we do in the run, it will only really save one location, which is right after the intro, where you end up in the small lake and the title card plays. But it does so without the boot I picked up at the start of the run, which means I actually have to go back to the title screen, erase the save, and start a new one. I had to start a number of runs. With that explanation out of the way, the next trick is getting up onto this ledge from the water. The trick is pretty challenging and it requires you to drop the boot, crouch, and pick up the boot to trick the game into thinking you're on the land already. It takes some tries and some interesting setups, but I eventually get it. This was another trick that I got a lot more consistent on as I went, mostly because I had to complete this a decent number of times with all the resets. The first time I made it up, I only actually got partially up, and it looked like I was just standing in midair. I paused, mostly because while I know there are things you can do to recover and ensure you make it up, I did not actually know what those were. So I kind of panicked that whatever input I did would be the wrong input and drop me back in the lake. Fortunately, after some tentative button inputs, I get up on the ledge. Took about 8 minutes, but I was feeling pretty good. And that brings us to our next skip, which is kind of a weird one. You basically drop the boot, crouch, uncrouch, and pick it up, which lets you rotate to the side, and this glitches you through the fence at the top and teleports you up to the top. Watching back my first attempt, it looks like the first time I actually made it up, I wasn't even doing the strat correctly. I just triggered a different glitch, I think, which teleported me up. This definitely came back to bite me in the ass. I had to go through this section a couple times, and I never really understood what I was doing here. This continued to create issues on the multiple resets I had to do to get this run completed, but I'll spare making you watch those. So, with that done, I clipped through this gate using my trusty boot in the same method I clipped through the gate at the start of the run. Just like the first clip, this is pretty easy and pretty consistent. Plus, since it's the same method for both, it gives me double the practice on the resets. And then we teleport, or more accurately, then we don't teleport. So the trick here is to basically drop the boot and then pick it back up in such a way that the game gets confused and basically teleports you to the other side. I tried throwing myself at this wall for a while, but it seemed pretty clear to me there was something lacking in execution that was making this not work. Then the boot flew away and left me alone. So I remembered that there was also an older strat for getting through the wall using this plate, but I didn't actually write anything down about it. So I just sort of shoved myself at the wall with a plate, which then glitched out. So I lost that too. I spent some time trying to find objects that could serve as a replacement plate or boot, but ultimately nothing was working. So I accepted my failure, quit back to the title screen, and started over. On the way back, I messed up the wall jump and got the boot up, but not me, so I had to reset again. I'll point out that I either don't really understand the tricks in this game, or they are incredibly precise. I struggled pretty intensely just to get back to the point I already was, which wasn't even halfway through the run. At which point I was once again just slamming my boot-holding goose face into this fence, not really understanding what I was doing. I eventually got frustrated and switched to trying to do plate skip. I then tried to use the plate to do the original skip. Then I lost the boot to the fence gods again. But eventually I managed to slam the plate against the wall and mash buttons in the right sequence to clip through the wall on the upper landing. I was almost an hour into recording footage of me doing a 2-minute speedrun. Any expectation I had that I could get through this quickly had completely evaporated. So the next clip is Timmy Clip. Timmy is the name of this tiny figurine, which I think in-game is modeled off one of the townsfolk named Timmy, but I'm not actually certain on that. Basically, you're supposed to grab Timmy, head over, and use it to quickly scale up this tower to grab this bell, which I didn't really write any notes on because the explanation I watched was basically spam the drop pickup button until you're high enough to grab the bell. And it absolutely did not work. I don't know if it's a timing issue, so I was pushing the button too fast or too slow or what, but I could not get any ground up this stupid castle tower. Eventually my frantic clicks to drop and pick up Timmy that I did enough damage that a portion of the tower fell away. I don't know if that would have stopped the hopping, but at that point I was an hour deep and I still had 3 clips left to do. So I decided to take the loss and just tear the stupid thing down and grab the dumb bell. Heading back, I got a little confused on what I was supposed to do before remembering I need to clip back in where I'd previously clipped out using the plate, which I could not figure out. Everything I tried was just not working. Even though I was pretty confident in my notes, spoiler, I shouldn't have been, I tried to skip back in through this area for almost 15 minutes before I actually had to give up. It wasn't just frustration, although it certainly wasn't not that, but the motion of the camera and the goose was making me motion sick. Outside of VR, I've never actually gotten motion sick playing a game, but this stupid goose had managed to make me feel physically ill. For the sake of my own well-being, I had to give up. I turned off the recording and closed the game. I loaded up my save again just to see if I could salvage this run later, and no. Because I've had the game checkpoints, it would take me right back to the beginning, meaning I'd basically spent an hour and accomplished nothing. I laid down to let my stomach settle and thought over what to do. The second speedrun I ever attempted without playing a game, and I couldn't even finish it. Could I even turn this into a video? Or would I have just wasted the last hour of recording for nothing? I was tired and nauseous, and it was all for naught. Even Sand Kingdom didn't feel this demoralizing. But no, I refused to give up. I spent the next hour going over the speedrunning resources again and letting my stomach settle. I expanded my notes, making sure to note down the things I missed or didn't think were important for pulling off these tricks. This time I'd be prepared, both with better notes and the experience I'd gotten trying to push through on my first attempt. I pushed through the first few clips. I still didn't have anything close to mastery of these, but I'd done them before and I basically knew what I was doing. I even forgot to switch audio sources, so I didn't record the audio for this and didn't start my splits on time. Not great, but I pushed through. I wasn't about to restart again. I reached the bell tower and still didn't understand what I was supposed to do, even after watching tutorials. What I was doing was just not working. I think it must have been the speed of my inputs, or there's a particular pattern you need to push the buttons in. But despite damaging the tower a lot, this time I made it up the wall and grabbed the bell. Then back to my old friend, skipping back into the bar. I realized here that the trick is not a drop clip like it was before. It's crouching at the right angle so you get pushed back into the space between two invisible walls. This then pushes you up and back in bounds. Now that I know that, I was able to achieve what I needed and I didn't even get sick this time. So that's progress. The second to last clip requires you to drop and grab the bell in a particular spot to get through the fence. It's not actually a hard trick by itself, but this stupid old man keeps harassing you to get back the bell you stole. I figured out after my first few attempts failed that I could hide under the deck and he would run on top of the deck to try and find me. It took a couple times of hiding under the deck, but I was able to do the drop clip with the bell and the hard part of the run was over. All that was left was reverse gate clip. There isn't really a consistent setup for this, even the speedrunning guide admitted it. You just sort of drop the bell at an angle, move forward and grab it. After a number of tries trying to get through, I was able to get my head through and rotate past the last trick. Then I ran back to the start of the game and dropped the bell with its friends. And that was another speed run down. Oof, that run was a nasty one. I honestly thought this wouldn't be too bad. It's only a 2-minute run, how awful could it be? Turns out the answer is 2 hours. I was enamored with the run when I first saw it, but I don't think I understood how precise and finicky the important skips were. And contrary to Mario Odyssey, there wasn't much feedback on what I was doing wrong. On Mario, you're at least using his movement and you know when an input was wrong or messy or late. But this game was a mess. It definitely made me realize that the amount of time it takes to record a run is not exactly based on how long the run actually is. But hey, this is about learning new things, and oh boy, did I learn new things. I do plan on continuing to make these. It's a fun experiment, both in gaming and the new ways to put these together. So to those of you who watched, I hope you had fun. Drop a like, maybe subscribe. But if you have any suggestions for games to speedrun, drop them in the comments below. If I see any interesting games with reasonable speedruns, ones that I haven't played, I'll give them a look. But that's all for me. Hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.